Hello everyone, welcome to a free session from itlearn.com. This is Karthik. We're going to talk about automation frameworks today, what they are and how we go about implementing them within our testing projects. So before we get there and discuss what are the various types of automation frameworks that we have, and what are the best practices to build, how to choose the right framework for your project, challenges, rather call them as typical challenges, and how to resolve them. But before we get there into this team, we definitely have to start with the step 0, which is what is test automation, number 1. Okay, and then why do we require frameworks? All right, this should give us a lot of clarity on how we go about building them from there. All right, everyone with me? I hope you can see my screen and you can also hear me okay right now. Cool, let's go. So let's start with automation team. What is test automation? Now, I want the audience to interact with me using the Q&A. So you have a question and answer section, and in that section, you can put your answers also for the questions that I'm asking. Okay. What do we call as test automation team? What is basically test automation all about? We know what is software testing. We are taking an application and making sure that it works correctly, right? So to do that, how do we go about doing it? The manual testing I'm talking about, not yet the automation part. Okay. We write our test cases. Correct, everyone? Once we write our test cases, in these test cases, we mention what are the different steps in it. What else do we require to execute a test case? What else do we require? Exactly, data. Data basically talks about, if I need to, for example, this application is a simple application where you go in and let's say you do a simple user login. Okay, your step 1 would be click on the login button, right? I don't know why team, but my hand is shaking a little bit. Give me a second. You click on the login button. You know what? The second would be you enter a username. All right. Then you enter a password. Then you log in. And then you confirm that the login happened. Now, when we have to execute such a test case, we will require data. Data like what is the username, what is the password, how do we confirm that the login happened. And this type of information, you put it typically into your manual test case. Anything else that you require out here? So if I say what has to be done, what each step contains and what is the data, we as manual test engineers should be able to understand, because we can see with our eyes and we can find where the login link is, where the username field is, where the password is, and so on. So when the manual testing has been so popular for such a long time, why did a requirement come for an automation testing? Why do you think, team? Why do you think that a requirement came in for automation testing? Is there truly a need to do something like that? Primarily for 3 reasons, team. The first is being efficient. We want to make sure that it is faster and it can be doing things much more quicker, and it is also reusable. We can repeat the same things over and over again. Do we really need to repeat? Once I have an application and we test it, we launch it, let us say WhatsApp as an application. WhatsApp is ready. It is available. Everyone is using it. So testing is completed, right? But where is the scope of repeat? Repeat comes specifically when the functionality keeps getting changed or new functionality is being added and we have to retest the whole thing. So given that this is the scope of a current application and this box defines that within these boundaries, whatever you see are the features for that app. Okay, let's say different dots for each of them. Now, when we do a new version or a release, we add something more, and we may also delete some of the existing features. So we will not only have to test how this is happening, the new functionality, we also have to make sure that the old functionality has been taken away, but we also would like to go about doing that entire testing again, and that becomes your regression testing. All right. The last and most important thing is accuracy. Accuracy is all about ensuring that as manual test engineers, we are still prone to making mistakes that are humanly possible. And we want to ensure that this is taken away. So to do this, now we will have to teach automation tools about how to go about automating it. Now, how do I teach a tool to automate something? I have to teach a tool what to do. So basically very simple. I have to tell what is my test case. That is one. I have to state what are the different steps that are there to achieve the test step. Correct? I also have to say what data is required for that specific test case to get executed. Apart from this, do I need to say anything else? What is the difference between the manual versus automation? We have test cases, test steps, test data. Anything else is required? Obviously, at the end of each thing, we will get results. And results can be simple, pass, fail, or it can be a very advanced and great looking dashboard in a HTML or a PDF or an XML format and so on. But something else is missing too. When we talk about test steps, we are saying what is it that we want this application, this specific test step to be done for. Is it to click? Is it to type something? Is it to select something from the drop down list and all that? So your test step says what to do. Your test data gives that input as to what additional information is needed. But there's one key thing missing. So I'm still looking at the audience to try and answer that for me. I just got a couple of correct answers from this large audience so far. What else is needed, team? And that basically says all about automation testing, and then we can talk more about frameworks. Results is basically what it is. What do you expect? What did you get? Then we know it's a pass or a fail. You can also do advanced things saying that how many test cases you ran, how long it took, which ones failed, where did it fail, with screenshots or even video footage while the testing is being done. Now I am definitely assuming, team, that some of you have orientation or exposure towards software testing in general, and if you have knowledge in automation, even better. What else is required, guys? Come on. I also have to teach the where portion to it. If I don't tell the automation tool where to click, where to enter data, which checkbox to select, where is the drop down list from which I have to choose an item, it cannot do it. So I have to say what to do, I have to say where it has to be done, and we have to provide an input to it. And that is how all automation tools work. Alright, three simple things: what, where, and input. That is exactly what you will see in IDEs like Selenium or HPUFT and so on, where you will see that there is a target, there is a command, and there is an input data. Those are the three important elements. Okay, so now we teach the tool about what to do. How do you go about teaching this tool, team? How do we teach an automation tool to do certain things? What are the ways? You're understanding what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to get how we are moving from manual testing. What are the typical advantages we're looking in automation testing, which is our efficiency, reusability, and accuracy. And we are trying to see how an automation testing tool works. But now if I have to really do this, how do I teach the tool? Come on, guys. There's nothing like right or wrong answer. You just have to share what you think. Yes, one of the first and most easiest way that we see that is available with most recording tools is, with automation tools, is record the steps. Do a simple record. When we do a record, what happens? It learns as we go about. When I say it, the automation tool learns as we go about executing our steps. It stores the what to do, where it has to perform that, and any other data that is required for each and every step. And then your script is ready for us to play back and run. And then once we click on it, it will go about doing it. Is there any other way? You can also write your own custom code. Correct? Where I will actually write where it has to go, what it has to do, and the data that is required as an input instead of doing a record. So why are we moving from a record to a custom code when such an easy feature is available? Why do we have to write our own custom code? And this is where the programming or scripting comes in place. For example, VB script with your HP QTP UFT, or Java or C# and so on with your Selenium. All this coding will come in there. So if coding is complicated or it is not that straightforward, and maybe sometimes also the reason why we chose software testing as a career profession, then why take the headache of going from record to custom code? What could be the reasons, Steve? It gives us better control. So let me type it here. It will be easy for me that way. Record versus custom code. One gives us more control on what has to be done. It gives us the ability to add logic, add conditions, add loops. It gives us the ability to further optimize the code and make it more faster because we want to achieve efficiency. It also lets us take the basic code to a very advanced level. So all through this, going from a record versus a custom code and trying to get to each level, we are only targeting those three areas: efficiency, reusability, and accuracy. So in the hunt for efficiency, reusability, accuracy, we moved from manual testing to automation. And we also moved from record to custom coding. Now, this works fine. This will work fine. Then why do we require frameworks? Why do I have to go away from simple custom code to a framework? What do you think? So repeating, reusing, efficiency, accuracy, That we are achieving. But why are we going so advanced? Manual testing to automation, already one huge leap for mankind almost, right? Then record to custom coding, another leap. Now custom coding to a more advanced framework. Why? So before we answer that, I'm just looking at all the chat messages, team. That way I'm seeing how the team is interacting and what they have to say specifically about it. What is a framework? Very simple. I'm not looking for an English definition here. What is a typical framework? What can I say about it? It has a structure. It has a specific structure. It follows specific standards. It is more proven and robust. Easy to implement, change, or maintain over a regular code. Now, this is all for someone who's never worked in frameworks. This is gonna be a little Greek and Latin, correct? Why? Because we're saying structure. What is the structure? What is the standard? How can it be proven? How can it be robust? Easy to implement, change, or maintain over a regular code. Let me give you a very simple example, team. Human skeleton. Now let's think about human skeleton with these points in mind. Human skeleton has basic structure, correct? Just the skeleton I'm saying. Now it has the bones, limbs, the skull, the rib cage, all the joints, how they're connected to each other and so on. It follows a standard. It knows exactly where the feet have to be, where the kneecap has to be. All these things are preset. And the creator of a human skeleton ensured that it is proven. Why? Over a period of thousands and I don't know how many millions of years, we have evolved this to be a proven structure. It is robust. Why? Today we are able to stand, run, jump, play, fall, get up, and still our structure is supporting us. Now, all it does is to change or maintain means basically very simple thing. Let's say you break a bone. You know exactly how, where, what to do and go and fix it. If you need, if you're hurt somewhere, your skin is protecting it. Now, most importantly thing, it can be customized. What is this customization? So the same skeleton, and we have 7 billion unique looking people across the globe, leaving a few thousands or millions of twins. We have unique looking people. How? The same skeleton, it is a framework. It is proven, it's got a structure, it's standard, it's robust, you can maintain it very easily and so on. But when it comes to customization, every human will look different. But then that is different from, let us say, a bird's skeleton. You see what I'm saying? A human skeleton can be customized, but eventually it will look like a human. A bird skeleton also can be customized, what color the bird should be, how big it should be and so on. But again, it is going to be a bird at the end of the day. So you create something based on the need. And this is how we have evolved over a period of thousands of years, millions of years, right? Now that becomes a framework team. Now let's talk about what is a framework and what type of frameworks do we have in today's world. One of the simplest ones is a linear framework. Linear framework means there are code which says user, okay, I'll say login link click. Do you understand what is this? This is the first step for it. So the user comes in and clicks on the login link. Then the user name field enter text, and the text is, I'll say Karthik, for example. Very simple English I'm writing here. All right. Next, I can also say to the same thing that, okay, then the same thing again, enter text, now the password field, and then enter text karthik. Finally, I have, what is that? Click. Okay, login button dot click. Now, here is a very simple test case team, right? What is the name of this test case? User login. Now, can you tell me how many test cases might a simple application, let us take even Gmail, may have? Just a random guess. 1,000? 5,000? Maybe even 10,000? You never know. So it is not one or two. And how many test cases do you think will be as simple as this? The user login itself, we have 4 steps into it. And there can be more variations to it. I can say remember password dot click. I can also say things like after we log in, we confirm login and so on. Now let us talk about another test case team, and now you'll understand everything about this linear framework that I'm talking. Okay. I will talk about a test case where send email is required. Now this is a linear framework team. So if I have to send an email, what do I do, team? First I have to log in. So I copy all the steps, I put it here, and then click compose, then type message, type subject, type send, and then let me leave this remember password out of this for a second, team. I'm not going to do that. So I'm just taking this out for a second. Okay. So the user has to log in, then they have to go about send, and then confirm, send, then log out. Here is a test case for sending an email. Now linear framework is this, where we go about writing every step. Now tomorrow, if we have a change in the user login, I have to change that in this test case. Now I'm saying a new feature came in, and we are saying remember password, there's an option to click or to uncheck. So I have to change it here. Simple, right? But then the user login is used within send email. It could also be used in thousands of other test cases here, correct? Then what do we do? That is when we realize that, hey, you know what? Why don't we use functions and create something called as a functional decomposition framework? Now I'm saying that for user login, I will have certain steps. Okay, each hyphen related to one step. For sending email, I will have certain steps. For user logout, I will have certain steps. To attach, I will have, for attachments, I will have certain steps. To add contact, I will have certain steps. And I will keep them as reusable components. Now, if I have to create a new test case which does send with attachment, how do I do it? First, user login I will call, then I will say attach, okay, send email, or, and then I'll say attach, right? And then I will say user logout. Now this is a new test case. So I have created code. Each of these hyphens is saying that I've created a function that contains all of these. How does the function look? Simple. Function user login Then we say to execute this function, I need the username and I need the user password, and then we have all the steps in it for that function. All the steps are here. So from now on, whenever I have to change something here, I just have to change it in one place. I don't have to go about changing everywhere. You understand why we evolved from a simple linear framework, which is one step at a time for each test case, to a more advanced functional decomposition framework? Yes? Everyone with me so far, team? You're trying to understand, right, where we're going? Now you understand why we moved from a simple linear framework out here. Let me put 2 stars or 3 stars in front of this framework, so you know why we're moving from linear framework to here, because our maintenance, let me write down why we move it. Okay, where are the advantages? You know, it's simple framework. I'll just write what are the disadvantages of a linear. Okay, one is changes require a lot of time, so we're losing efficiency. So if I have to change user login, I have to go and change it everywhere, right? Second is, actually this is the only big challenge, team, in this. Changes will require a lot of time because you have to go everywhere and do it. Yes, also with many changes, errors are prone to happen. 1 second, guys. Sorry, everyone. So these are the, and we are losing accuracy here. Accuracy is also lost. Why will accuracy get lost in? Whenever we require a lot of human intervention, right? And we require to go and change, it is bound to fail sometime. And that is the reason this software testing field is such a huge one. Okay, so because of these two, we are saying let's create this functional decomposition framework. What is it? We basically will take each and every small component and create a function out of it. Once I create a function out of it, then I can call it as and when I want. So now what are the advantages here? The typical disadvantages with the earlier one become an advantage. How? Changes require lesser effort. Let me use this diagram also to explain to you. It will become very easy then. Okay. There's nothing complicated about this thing. It's very simple. I'm just talking about evolution of how these frameworks were being built. Now, instead of writing for user login as individual test case, I'm saying I'll create a block of code for it. Okay. And for user logout, I will create another block. For sending email, I'll create another block. Okay. And for attachment, another block, and so on. Now, whenever I have to write a new test case, I'll just pick and say user login, send email, user logout. This becomes one test case. Next, another test case, I want to do attachment. User login, send email, attach something, and user logout. Now, another one is a simple one, just user login and logout. So, now tomorrow, if something changes in the send emails functionality, I just have to change it here. I don't have to change here, 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 and here, here. And these are just 3 test cases. Just imagine if there are thousands of them, correct? So there is a central repository where we are maintaining this as functions, and whenever we have to modify a functionality of an application, because applications will keep changing, they will never remain same. Change is the only constant thing that you'll see in all software applications team. They will have to keep changing. So you don't have to go and change it in thousands of places, you change it in one place. That is how we are improving on the efficiency. Okay, and we are able to reuse this over and over. We are also seeing the accuracy has improved. Now this is good. This is our functional decomposition framework, linear framework, functional decomposition framework. Now what could the disadvantages be that we have to create another framework over this? Everyone can hear my audio? Is audio all right, team? Or is it getting choppy for anyone? Okay now? All right, thank you. So why did we have to think beyond? Because there are certain disadvantages even here. What are they? One, and most importantly, team, where is that diagram? Now for user login, we're talking about test cases, we're talking about test steps, right? We're talking about data. Remember those four important things, team, everyone? What are the four important things that we spoke about in automation? Let me put one out here so we remain with it that way. Yellow. So the four main elements for your automation are test case, your test steps, right? Your locations or element identifications or objects that we work with, elements or objects, okay? Elements or objects is how we recognize, and any data. These are the four building components, team, for automation. For manual testing, this could have been ignored. Not for automation, because the tool is not smart enough. It has got no artificial intelligence. All right. Now, the disadvantage here is, what if I want to test for one user login? Okay, user login, Karthik is fine. How about I also want to do it for Brett? Then what do I do? What about if I want to do it, let's say for Sam? Then what do I do? I have to go back here and each time change this again, correct? So the data is hard coded. When I say data is hard coded, what it means, it is data is inside the code. Oops. So each time we need to change the data, then we have to go and change in the code, correct? This becomes a problem. Third thing is, a QA team, a typical QA team may have 20% automation engineers and 80% manual engineers, manual test engineers. Okay. So if I build an automation framework where the 80% manual engineers cannot go and open the code and change it, then it's a problem. We want the non-techie / manual engineers also to use this framework. So that is where your functional decomposition framework fails. Then what do? We have to drive this test case for different sets of data, and then comes your data-driven framework. Every test case may get executed for different sets of data. How? Very simple. Everyone with me, team? You're following right what I'm trying to say and where we're trying to go with this? I have test case 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I have set of test data. When I'm saying test case, team, the step and the element identifier, I'll just call this as EI. Okay, element is nothing but the objects that we find in the application, in the browser or in the client server machine and so on. Now I have test data. I have test data set called A. There is a set A. There is a set B. There is a set C. Now, the same test cases have to get executed for each set of data. I want to see how does this application behave when the data keeps changing. Is that even practical enough? Does it happen in the real life? Of course. Let us say that you're doing it for a banking application. You transfer $500 in a day from one account to the other. Now let us test it for $1,000. And then the test case must fail. That is the functionality. Why will it fail? Because you cannot send over $1,000 in a day, or the limit is to send 1,000, and you have to test it for 1,001. So 500, it worked fine. But when it came to 1,001, then it failed. It was supposed to fail. But unless I change the data, I won't be able to do it. So if the data is there inside the code, the program, then only the 20% automation engineers have to go and change, and it is the tedious job. So now we got an idea. We got an idea that we'll build a new framework. How? We will separate certain things. Okay. This framework has my main program. Okay. The logic is here. What it has to do, where it has to do, and so on. Then it also has reusable functions. So these functions are being called and interacted with this program as and when needed. Okay, your program is nothing but your code. Whatever code you write is out here. Earlier, for linear, only program was there. For a functional decomposition, we added functions and kept them separate. So it is easy to maintain. Now we are saying the data from here, we're going to move it and put it somewhere else. Where it could be anywhere, guys. It could be an Excel file. It could be a text file. It could be a database. It could be a flat file. It can be an XML file, and so on. Now, whenever the program wants, it will go and fetch that data, and it will try and execute based on that. You understanding, team? So the data has now become external. So the program, functions, and now data has been taken out from the code, and it has been kept separated. Okay. When you see and execute this, you will notice that not only do the automation engineers have enough work to do in maintaining and building this constantly for the thousands of test cases, they are able to share it with manual test engineers. How? They will say, you know what, I have 1,000 test, let's say I have 1,000 test cases. Okay. But I have 200 sets of test data also apart from that. So automation engineers will say, you know what, guys, let me focus on this 1,000 test cases. Hey, manual engineers, can you help me with this 2,000 sets of test data? All you have to do, go change the username, passwords, login information, banking information, and all that information. So the work is being shared. And that becomes our data-driven framework. So what are the advantages for it? One, you are able to repeat the same test cases for varied sets of test data. Okay. Again, much more faster. Efficiency is very important. When I talk about efficiency, this becomes critical, and I'll talk about efficiency a little bit more as we go along. And you will see that it is you're sharing load with the manual engineers. Great. Now, how could there be disadvantages for such a framework? This seems to be getting even better. How can there be further disadvantages, guys? It doesn't make sense, right? Yes, it does. We don't want to stop. When we started building automobiles like cars, you know how they were when the Ford started with the first car, and how much of growth we had today. These things keep changing, functionalities keep changing, needs keep changing. Now let me talk about the disadvantage for this. Okay. Actually, I can use the same one. In this case, I take a different color of this. I am saying that great, but now I have, let's say, 4,000 test cases instead of 1,000. So automation engineers are again crowded, and this application keeps on changing. Every 2 weeks, a change happens, a new deployment happens. Someone has to go and retest everything. They have to do the regression testing, they have to do the system testing, they have to do the performance testing. So there is a lot of burden. And we also realized that the application changes. Now when application changes, what happens, team? This is the current scope of the application. All the dots say this is the different functionalities like login, transfer money, verify balance, add a new account holder, all of those things. Now they're saying, you know what, we are changing these two functionalities. Okay. And we are adding a new functionality where send money to a friend using their email address. Now you have to go and automate these. You have to write test cases for this. You have to also go and change the test cases out this, and you have to retest the whole thing. So a lot of activities. Now what do we do? I have separated my data team out here. What are the 4 components that we have, team? We have, where are they? We have our test cases, test steps, and data. Now today we successfully separated test data out of it, and that is giving us the ability to build a data-driven framework. Now we're saying if I also separate test cases and test steps separated and not link it with the program, maybe it will get more efficient. How? So I will write the test cases and test steps in a very specific format in an external place where I'll write test case and step. What is the step? Okay. What is the data that we want to do it? What data I want to put, and what is that? How do we recognize that element out here? And we're putting this in an external place, and I'm teaching my program to understand each and every step which is there externally here in this new template, which can be a simple template like an Excel sheet which has rows and columns. So there's a test case name, there's a test step name, what is the data and how we identify the element. And the program is a smart one that goes, looks at each of these and executes it. In this, the primary thing is what is it that we want to do? Like click on a link or copy an image or enter some text and so on. And each of these things, we started calling them as keywords. They are keywords because of the fact that these are the activities that a user will perform on the application. Team, I know I'm taking a lot of time to really go in deep, but I hope you are understanding where we are growing and how these things have evolved and what automation frameworks are all about. Everyone with me, team? Do I have the focus and attention from the audience? Okay. And I know it's a fast session, so this video will really help you to go back and revisit it. All right. Great. So we said, you know what, we'll create keywords, and each keyword is linked to one step at a time. And I'll create a very, very smart program. So my program started with the linear framework, then functional decomposition, then data-driven, to now calling it as keyword-driven. So the disadvantages here is changes to test cases requires again code change. Second is to add new test cases, we have to do a code change. That will add to issues with efficiency, reusability, and accuracy. That is the disadvantage. Now comes the new savior called keyword driven framework, all it does is it divides all test steps by using reusable keyword functions, and it stores them externally, and it gives us the advantages of whatever these disadvantages will become advantages here. And each time we're also involving the manual test engineers more and more. We want them to participate with us in the whole process of automation, because automation is just not programming team, right? We have to design. So first we have to plan, then we have to design, then we have to do our coding, then we have to do our testing of the framework, then the execution, right? And once it is done for the first time, we have maintenance. So I understand planning, design, coding, and execution were being done by the automation engineers. Now we're saying manual test engineers can also do the maintenance, and they can also do the execution. So we're slowly getting them more and more involved. So this way requires no code change. We have to, again, requires no code change. We can go and add a new test case directly in here. So now if I have to add a new test case, I just go open up this Excel or any other tool, wherever, as long as the program can understand the format, and add a new test case or modify an old test case and be able to choose which ones to execute, which ones not to execute, and so on. Great. So out of all the 4 components, okay, we have successfully got the code out of test cases, test steps, and data. And this became our keyword-driven framework. All right. Now, what are the disadvantages further to this? What could the disadvantages here be? I'm assuming the keyword-driven framework also has data-driven method, and that's fine. We're not saying that it is purely this. Okay. The data also has already been successfully taken away and put aside. Now, what could be the disadvantages here? The primary disadvantages is when the web pages change and element identification becomes an issue, or there's too much of dynamism in the web objects. Now what do we do? Now what we do is we create a new one called page factory or page object, either one model. This is very simple, team. All it does is the element identifications are taken and put in a new location that can be reused. We are just adding to one thing after the other thing and after the other thing and going on like that. So for example, team, I've really not prepared a code screenshot of what we're doing, but if you notice, this is one of the keyword driven file Excel. This was from our yesterday's session in Selenium with C#, and we put all the steps that we are doing as part of how we go about developing a framework here, the list of test cases, and we're able to choose which ones to execute. Then I said here are the test steps, and each step has the test case ID, the step description, the keyword, the input elements like the XPath or the element identifier or test data. All of this is being put here, and this is a ongoing training where we are developing this, and each of these students learn how to make it happen. And here are the list of keywords and what we've completed so far, what we're yet to do. Then here is a simple look at the first code where we just did a data-driven framework. We just taught how to read into C# code using with by putting the data in an Excel file. For example, this one was using interact.com as an application, and we were trying to add trainees to it. So to add trainees, I put the data in a separate file. What is that? Here. I said, I want, this is the test data. Here are the usernames. Here are the first names, last names, emails, what course, and status, which says, did it pass or did it fail? Each of these things. And now, when we used the first code, which was the data-driven framework, we were going through each and every row in that specific Excel sheet, getting the information, putting it into local variables, and executing. If it is ready for run, then we're going about calling the reusable functions that will add a trainee, and then it will finally come out and log out. And each of these are now reusable functions. Like for user login, we have a function with all the steps. For add trainee, we have a function with all the steps. For user logout, we have a function with all the steps. But if you noticed here, team, the element identification is there within the code itself. So tomorrow, if I have to do anything, I have to come and change it here. Also, the entire functionality is here within the code. Now we created an altogether new one. The new one, which was the keyword-driven framework, where even the test cases and test steps as to what exactly to do have been put here. The keywords, the inputs, and how we go about taking it from here. Now the new code will look totally different, and it will look much more simpler. This is a new code. What does this code do? Very simple. I created a reusable function set called keyword functions. If I want to navigate a browser, how I do it? If I want to click on a button, how do I do it? If I want to type text, how do I do it? If I want to read text, how do I do it? Click link, how do I do it? All of this information is put in this reusable functions. And now I have a main code which primarily goes, it reads the Excel, puts it locally into this code. Then we go about going through each row in the test case sheet, see if the execute is yes. So that way we're able to choose which ones to execute and not. And then if it matches, then go to each test step sheet, make sure that the test case IDs match. And if it is type text, call that function, pass the corresponding inputs. If it is read text, do that. If it is navigate browser, do this. If it is split browser, do this. And our code will become much more cleaner. The only challenge in this is I have put all the objects for each thing out here. Like login button is here. But again, the same login button is there everywhere. So this is just one test case now. If I put all the 4 test cases, I have login button here, I have login button here, I have login button. So I have an issue there. If something has to change in the element identification, it has changed here. Now what I will do is I'll create a new sheet. I'll call this as my page objects. Okay. In the page object, I will say here is the URL to the page. I will say what is the name of the page. Okay. Then I will say what is the name, object name. Then I'll say what is the object type, just in case, and I will say what is the element identification. Now I will give this a name, a unique name, so it can get recognized. So I will call this as the unique identification for that. Now I'll say, for example, this is home underscore login underscore button. That is the name. And for this, let's assume that here is the XPath for this. Where is that? Click on login button. Okay. Let me save this as a different one because I don't want to change what is going on. Team, I will require 4-5 more minutes because I'm still in mid of showing you a few things. So I hope that's okay for you all. It's a large topic, team. So URL is, what is the website URL that I have? interact.com/app. So here is the URL for it. Okay. And I put it here. And name of the page is home page. Object name is login link or button. Then object type is it's a link. Now element identification, I got it from there. I'll put here this sheet. Now what I will do, team, in here I will go about maintaining all the different elements and their identifications out here. Okay. And what will I do in this test step sheet? I will just copy this and put it here. So this is this now for user login. Again here this, here this, here this. Now the code has to first come here. It has to see what it has to do, get this information, go to the page objects, get the corresponding XPath for it. If tomorrow the XPath changes, some class changes from form_control to, let's say, it becomes a name out here instead of class as the attribute, we say it's a name, and the name that the user now gave more, oh, sorry, this is a link, right? So I'll say instead of this, okay, I'll just say, that's fine, class. Okay, let's assume the class itself. Class is instead of form-control, it will say basic link is the name of this class. Now I don't have to go and change this information everywhere because now it will take the updated version. So we have this way evolved to successfully get everything out of the program and put it aside. So my framework is getting more and more effective. Now not only am I doing this, but then comes the test environments. What are the different environments that we want to do? For example, is it a desktop? Is it on a smartphone? Is it on a tablet? It's on which browser? Is it on Chrome? Is it on IE or Firefox or Safari and so on? Which version? So we have multiple combinations of these. Even this we could take and put it into a different one. So all of these advancements have taken over in this fashion. Save this. This session took much longer than I thought, but I hope you've got the overall idea of it. Have been with the intent of how we improve our efficiency, reusability and accuracy. Because when we do automation testing, as I said, it requires us to plan, design, build or code, then test it, then maintain / execute. Different steps. So this will take some time, right? Maybe 4 automation engineers working for 3 months will create one framework. Or if it is a more complicated one, maybe we require 40 automation engineers. Now, this is a lot of effort. So we're talking about, let's say, 120 into, okay, about 200, let's say 150. So we're talking about 1600 person hours of effort. That's a lot of time, correct? So automation pays over a period of time. So if you look at the curve of manual testing and automation, your manual testing effort will always be consistent, same. All right. So let's say here is the for each release, right? So let's say this is release 1, release 2, release 3, release 4 and so on. If I'm doing manual testing, then my effort is same across everywhere. But the same, if I do automation testing for my first release, my effort is super high because I have to develop. But as we keep going through and using for more releases, it will keep falling. Then it will start to stabilize. So this becomes your automation. This becomes your manual. But then do I make the money out here? The return on investment, will it come here? No. Will it come here? No. Even may not be here. So, but eventually you will get it over a period of time. So you have to plan and pick a framework based on those factors. How much budget do we have? What are the different resources? How many release cycles? How do we have our releases going? And how much of time period is given for us to develop this, and what kind of a usage level are we expecting. We want a lot of people to use it, or it's a purely thing. How much of coverage we do, or coverage on the manual test cases. All of these things will have the overall impact for us to choose a framework. Now, if you ask me, team, if we are working in heaven, when I say working in heaven, God has come to us and said, you know what, brilliant, I love your idea, do whatever you want, I'll give you all the resources. So no constraint with budget, no constraint with resources, release cycles, time period, usage expectation, all is set. Then we will do one of the best. Which is the best framework? The best framework will be then become something called as hybrid. It is functional, it is data, it has got keywords, it has got page object model, and whatever you've seen, we put all of them in this. All right. So that hybrid is nothing but a combination. But then in reality, we do have budget constraints, we do have resources, release cycles, and so on. Irrespective of the application or industry, the ideal one would be to do everything. But now let's say we have constraints. So if your application has lot of, if it's data sensitive app, what can be data sensitive app? Financial, travel, or what could else be? Financial, travel, banking, yeah, in the banking or insurance field, and so on. This requires a lot of data oriented testing. So then your data driven framework will definitely give quick results. Now let us talk about something more functional based app. Functional based app means more, it could be like a WhatsApp or a Facebook, your social media, or it could be something like a healthcare app where it talks about the different procedures and so on. So it is more rich on functionality. Data will be there. It is not that data is eliminated, but it is not necessarily so much of data. So then you choose to do a keyword driven. But you also see that there are things like which are more dynamic, things like trading, or forex, or something related with those markets where you see a lot of changes happening on the application. It is functionally rich, it is also having data to do, but it is also changing very often. Then maybe a page object model. Let us say I have a very simple app, then I will just stick with a functional simple app. Like, let's say, what can be a simple app? Like Interact, for example, is a simple app, but it is not necessarily that simple as you keep seeing it. Or it could be a simple thing like a notepad. How does it work? How does Skype Messenger work? I think nothing is really simple app. I mean, it's just the number of test cases. And then I just will stick with a simple functional decomposition framework. So the choice is dependent not just on the industry or the kind of application. It is driven most essentially towards what are the drivers to choosing a framework. And these are the main drivers. Then comes, yes, type of the app. Is it more data? Is it more functional? Is it more dynamic? And so on. And here maybe even maps and things like your Ubers of the world and so on. All those things could come out here. So depending on that, if you have everything, if all, then choose hybrid. No problem for budget, no problem for resources, release, time period, usage, and all that. Then you say, you know what? Great, give me 6 months, give me the best automation engineers, I'll sit down, make an awesome automation framework. And today, these are the standard methodologies of different framework and how we take them as understanding, how we go about building it. But you will see that new things will keep getting added. As the whole landscape of IT keeps changing, we'll start seeing a requirement for something more, something different, and so on. Alright team, so I hope you've got a good idea about frameworks. I do also have the time limit because I promised in our session I've already extended for 1 hour 5 minutes, and I want to give sufficient time for questions. So now I open up the session for questions and answers. You can please use the Q&A section in the GoToWebinar and ask me any specific question that you may have, and if it is relevant to what we're doing today, I will answer it. Or I'll have my team take it offline and help you answer. Did this webinar meet your expectations of what you expected to hear on the topic? Did I really do justice on that, team? That's the first thing I wanted to ask. Great. So far positive. So that's nice. Thank you. Yeah, I know it was very fast paced, but that's why the recording is there, team. So go back and look at it again because a lot of information that I gave in a short time. Okay, so there are technical questions also coming, team, like from a coding perspective, option explicit and dim and so on. So this is not really the platform for it. You have two options. One is you can go and just do a Google search, or you can also search in itlearn.com/forum. In itlearn.com/forum, there are sufficient amount of topics that you could take and check for technical help on. All right. What else? Let's see. How is the estimation done for automation framework? Like I said, the estimation is just like done like a software development cycle, like a typical software development, because we go about the whole cycle: plan, design, build, code, test, maintain, execute, and so on. Right now, this is all dependent on when we start our requirements and planning based on what we have, how many time, what timeline we have, and who's available. We have to look at it. We also have to say what kind of a framework we're building. There is a complexity of number of test cases, number of sets of test steps. How severe are these? How complex are these scenarios? How much amount of data is required? How dynamic is the application? How many fields are there? All of this contribute to it. So the type of framework that you're choosing, the kind of complexity with the application, what you have here, based on that is how you estimate. It is like any other typical software project estimation. But again, if we go into depth, it will take us about a couple of hours to really dig into how, what, and so on. In fact, there's one video somewhere about how we do software test estimation. But that is, I think, more to do with 1 second, team. All right. Sorry, back. So that is to do more with how we go about estimating. All right. Let's see. Very good recap of what framework. Great. Thank you. When to use central repository where you told make changes in one place. See, if you ask me, Dishant, I will say if I have the budget, resources, release cycles and all this, I will do it immediately. But then if you see the application really has challenges, and without having a good page object or object repository, it's going to be tough. Then we go about doing it. Right? If there is anything that I've missed as a question, please let me know. How much of the coding do you go over? Okay, Chris. I go very deep on coding. We really go very advanced on coding, especially for the training. The reason being the typical out-of-box things that we get from be it your UFT or Selenium IDE is too limited. To really be able to build these frameworks, it requires a lot more skill. So at least with the training perspective, you will be able to build any of these frameworks with ease. That's the level we'll get to. Thanks. I may know the timelines that is start date and end this for you. So Satish, that just contact the team. It is starting next week. The day 3 is starting next week for UFT. On the software, what functionality to be tested with manual testing and what functionality to be automated? How do we decide? So this is a question of more of automation versus manual. Always remember the fundamental rule is this. Okay. let's say that a test case, okay, manual test case takes 2 hours to execute one scenario. Now to automate this, it is very tough to automate because it is complex and so on. It's taking us 200 hours. Now do you imagine when we will get a return on our investment unless we use it 100 times? And assuming that automation will run it in seconds now, or it will do it in, instead of 2 hours, it will do it in 2 minutes. So it will take you between 100 to 300 times of usage before you start seeing the money. Then you should say, you know what, not worth automating. Forget it. Keep it manual. That one will do manual. But there's some activity which is taking 2 hours, and automation is only going to take you, let's say, 10 hours to achieve. When I say to automate, it is not automation run. To automate will take 10 hours. Then great candidate. That is one of the simplest thumb rules, Steve. Your return on investment, is it going to be efficient? Will we reuse it? Will it be accurate? If you see that a lot of times that accuracy will drop by automating certain test scenario, you drop the automation again for that. All right. Thank you, team. Thank you for the good words. Feel good. What else? Can you please tell me what is functional decomposition testing? Functional decomposition testing. See, these are just words that have been used very freely in the industry. What is decomposition? Number one, we are trying to decompose what is there and make them into functions. So just like the framework we're talking about, that how we organize everything into functions is what it is. Would you train agile model automation? I think most of how we approach is the agile model, but we are also doing very focused training on that in the, I believe it's coming up soon. All right, team, looks like I've answered most of the basic questions. If there are further questions, feel free to visit us at itlearn.com. You can also write to us on the email address, and here is the forum where you'll get much more information. Do go to our website and sign up for upcoming free events like these ones, and we will put this video on YouTube. You will have an opportunity to re-look at it, and you can go from there. Once again, thank you all. Thank you so much for attending. Thanks for your patience and extended time. We'll see you back and maybe in a training or a free event in future. Thank you all. Take care then. Bye now.